The Chicago Bulls kicked off the post-Zach LaVine era with a win against the Miami Heat with a big performance from Matas Buzelis as well. But on today's episode, we're going to talk about why the Bulls completed that win. AK's completion anxiety is popping up again with completing the rest of the trades that were rumored that the Bulls want to do here before the trade deadline. We're going to talk a little bit about that, plus Billy Donovan's commitment to being a part of the Bulls rebuild, which should be scary for some people. All that plus more right after this.
You are now tuned in to Chicago Bulls Central, your number one place for all Chicago Bulls news and content.
What's going on, Bulls fans? Welcome to another episode of Chicago Bulls Central, your number one spot for everything Chicago Bulls related. I'm the host, Sarah Hayes, but more importantly, you guys can follow the channel at Bulls Central Pod on every social media platform we happen to be on. With that said, let's go ahead and get into this content for today, y'all. And the Bulls got a win yesterday, which is great. All right, I want to make no mistake about that. It was really fun seeing that game. It was fun seeing Matas Buzelis have his come out party in a lot of ways in the NBA because Matas put his imprint on that game from the moment he checked into that game. He put his imprint on it. And that's leaving a lot of people now with a different feeling heading into what is going to be, I'm sure, a stressful period for most Bulls fans, which the Bulls have traded Zach LaVine. And reportedly, they got their picks back. So things could get ugly here for the Chicago Bulls. Now, one of the things in episodes that I had not too long ago is I talked about Arturas Karnisovas, the Chicago Bulls president of basketball operations, and the fact that he had completion anxiety, right? I want to link back to that, right? Because now the Zach LaVine trade has went down, a trade that has seemed, at least with all the details that have come out since then, that the Chicago Bulls kind of rushed to make, right? When you look at waiving Torrey Craig and Chris Duarte after the fact, right? Not really seeming like you had a plan before you completed the trade, which maybe you could have shopped those guys. Doubt anybody would have bid on them, but, there's that part of that perception of it at least, right? And then hearing that, hey, the Golden State Warriors and the Milwaukee Bucks were really kind of engaged and wanted to go after Zach LaVine, but the Bulls got tired of waiting on the Golden State Warriors deal, and then the Bucks deal, they weren't really enamored with what would have come back there. And, they got enticed by getting their own pick back, which is perfectly fine, right? We've talked about that. It is perfectly fine. Now, with that said, moving on from that, common thought, and what we've heard from Casey Johnson, Bobby Marks, we've heard this from a lot of people, is that the Bulls then pivoted to looking to the next deals, meaning that they wanted some compensation for Lonzo. They wanted something or whatever they can get for Nikola Vucevic. But now it seems like AK, again, with his completion anxiety, is things are starting to turn the tide. First up, we got yesterday from Mark Stein saying that the Bulls have not been eager to trade Lonzo Ball despite actual interest from teams around the league, saying this, that there are options with the Memphis Grizzlies, the Detroit Pistons, and the Minnesota Timberwolves of teams that are interested in Lonzo Ball. However, the Bulls seem more willing now to actually re-sign Lonzo Ball once his contract is up at the end of this season. And that's where it starts getting into, okay, AK, is this your completion anxiety popping up yet again? Because the questions that I have here for that now is, listen, Lonzo is a really good talent. And Lonzo doesn't get in the way. Right, Lonzo's somebody who I feel like he's helped the young players. He not only helps them with what they need, but also helping provide them ability to get the ball, right? Because, we don't have, even Matas Buzelis, right, doesn't really create his own shot yet. Dalen Terry doesn't create his own shot. And so Lonzo's somebody that you can see sticking around and helping these young players, right? Of course, the question is, how much will it cost to keep Lonzo Ball, especially for a player that, or a team that is clearly going in the direction of, needing to, or in the midst of a rebuild. So that's the question there. And that initially popped up, but again, I could see it happening for Lonzo. I have, if Lonzo stays here on a contract that is team friendly, right, I don't see any reason why anybody should have any problems with that. It just is what it is, right? Lonzo Ball, he's just that type of player. He can fit into really any system, any scheme. He just likes to play basketball, and he's good at playing basketball. His shot has been a little shaky, right? But over that, he's active. He plays defense. He gets players the ball. He can get out in transition. He rebounds well. So, okay, cool. You want to keep him on as a veteran and help kind of usher in the next phase and teach the young people? If he's cool to do that, great. But then next, we heard this, right? This one, as for the latest Bulls chatter, everything is fluid, but optimism for more moves that surface Monday. Nikola Vucevic is now prepared to be here past the deadline as the Warriors have shifted attention to bigger targets, including Kevin Durant. Now, okay, the Vooch part of it. Now, this is where we start getting into, at least in my personal opinion, where we start getting once again into AK's completion anxiety. Again, my opinion, not expecting everyone to have it, but this is how I truly feel about this team, right? Or about this front office. Because regardless of how good Vooch is or not, this isn't about how good Vooch is. To me, this is about the fit on the team, right? And Vooch is, now Lonzo fits because he doesn't get in the way. Lonzo doesn't command a bunch of shots. Lonzo is a point guard, truly. If he can distribute and get everybody else involved and play his defense, Lonzo's happy, right? But Nikola Vucevic, Vooch, is a player that does command shots, that does command a certain way you have to play as well with Nikola Vucevic, right? That's another thing. Whereas Lonzo, I think, could fit in on any scheme, on any system in the NBA because of the way that he plays. Vooch isn't that, right? And so now that the Bulls have allowed the trade market to dry up for Nikola Vucevic, again, seeming like them holding out for value, that seems like everybody else has come to the realization that value isn't there. Now, the Bulls also hold an ability to wait to pivot this. And, hey, Vooch is under contract next year. They can wait to see who needs a big man, who strikes out in the free agent market, and maybe that leads them to do something different, right? Maybe that leads them to still be able to trade to find value, especially if the value for Vooch right now is 2 second-round picks. Maybe you can find that value in the offseason as well, right? So I always want to throw that in, right? And you guys know, I try to always talk about things from both sides. I don't want to just give my side or just focus on my perspective, right? So there is some signs, right, where, okay, Nikola Vucevic, you hold on to him for now. You don't move him at the trade deadline. You wait till the offseason. You see what that value is going to be, and maybe you do strike and find some value. Find a similar value because the value is so low. All right, cool. You could sell me on that. But the thing and why this is concerning, though, for the Chicago Bulls is because we've been here before, right? We've seen AK way too many times start the process on something and not see it completely through with the subsequent moves that are needed to truly make it be a direction, right? Somebody pointed out last night on the live stream, what they're concerned about is that they keep on Lonzo, they keep on Vooch, and then we're in this place now of trying to be competitive again, right? Well, and in AK's version of competitive. And I would be lying if I didn't say that those fears didn't exist, that I didn't have those same exist myself, right? Because when you look at the thing that really AK's inability to just have his foot completely in one path. AK has been a GM that leaves his foot in two paths, in two places every single time. It never fails. It never fails. And so, when you hear things like, all right, they don't want to do business on Vooch, they let the trade market dry up. Yeah, sure, you can take the perspective in looking at that. Well, that's not on them. That's on the teams. The teams lost interest because they want to go after bigger fish. Cool, right? But how long have you heard that the Bulls have kind of held out in regards to some things about trades, right? About finding value for players. AK and Eversley aren't working right now with the faith of the front office that we're going to have blind faith that you are looking and trying to do everything you can to solidify stepping into the direction. And then it got made even more confusing when you start hearing, hey, Coby White could be on the trade block. And no, I'm not talking about the idiot that posted, oh, Coby White can go to the Magic. No, that's somebody that nobody knows who he is. And if you look at his page, he's clearly somebody who makes up shit. He's trying to be the next NBA Centel. But for Coby White now, right, you're starting to hear things like, and Coby has come out and said he does not expect to be traded, which is really good. I'm glad that Coby White does not expect, that's not the expectation that he's hearing, right? But you hear, again, things from Joe Cowley, which should be taken with an amazing grain of salt, is that the Bulls are evaluating the trade landscape for Coby White. Now, we haven't really heard as much about Ayo Dosunmu, right? We've heard some kind of general things just about young players in general, but this Coby White thing, it's interesting to watch, to say the least. Now, I do think, and I've said this before, that there is a world in which Coby White is moving. It makes sense. I think that depending on where the Bulls draft, they could very well go best available. And if there is a shooting guard there that they view is the best available player at that point in time to turn into a star, I don't think the Bulls will shy away of picking that guy because Coby White's on the team. Now, I don't think that means either that the Bulls are going to immediately turn around 2 days later and trade Coby, but I do think that could start setting down the path of maybe moving on from Coby if a certain type of player you got. The same thing with Giddey, same thing with Io, right? So I think that the Bulls are right now open to best player available, and that's basically where they should be at, right? Now, I already know that my fans last night over my Bulls fans over last night that us winning that game are concerned now about, oh my God, the rebuild, the pick. And I've said this before, and this is where I'm going to focus at for now. I told you guys that if it wasn't for the Bulls having a top 10 protection on that pick, I wouldn't be worried about it as much, right? I wouldn't be worried about our placing as much. So I'm not going to do this obsession thing over, oh my God, we're winning too much, we're going to lose this, we're not going to lose the pick. Even if this is one of the deepest drafts that you're going to see in a while, and the fact that you have two deep drafts like this deep back to back, the Bulls owning both their picks in both those drafts, it's going to be okay, right? The Bulls aren't a threat to fall out of the lottery. They're okay, right? So that's another thing when it comes down to it. But we'll see. We got another day and a half basically, because the trade deadline is 3 p.m. on Thursday, to see what this Bulls team is going to do. Hopefully they do some more things that make sense, that can gain them some assets, or if it's not assets, that it just makes sense for whatever they're looking for. Reportedly, they're shopping some of the pieces they just got to the team as well, trying to make those moves, and so we'll see what happens there. But overall, doesn't seem like the Bulls are done, but it does seem like they still have their foot in one door, out and in one other one, as far as what they want, the direction of this team truly is. Now, part of the confusion adding to that, and a lot of Bulls fans had hoped, hey, we're clearly going rebuild. Does that mean that Billy Donovan could get out? Hell, I speculated on it, right? But apparently Billy Donovan is all in, saying this. You've got to be able to partner in that to make things happen. I still think there's a long process in this. Quite honestly, you have a few more days left in this trade period. Then you're going to move into the draft, move into free agency in July. So there's going to be windows to make these things happen. I'm all for doing what's best for the organization, all the way from top to bottom. Everybody felt the same way. We're kind of in the middle here, and we had to make a shift and do something. That's been the goal to try to get done. He goes on to say in this interview as well, to say that he never said that he didn't want to be part of a rebuild in OKC. He said that that's something that started to kind of balloon, and the story built after, it went down, but it was never that, right? That he's fine being a part of something, even if that means the Bulls rebuild. And that's a problem. Because listen, if there's any other thing that points towards having your foot in one door, out the other, it's Billy Donovan remaining your head coach while you're trying to rebuild. I don't care if you wanted to be part of a rebuild in OKC or not. It's just the way that he coaches. Now, last night, it did start seeming to be a shift as that game went on. And I gave Billy Donovan credit for the fact that he was and did look like somebody who was fine playing the young players. He let them go. He let them go through their mistakes. He let them figure it out. We even saw Josh Giddey play a lot in the fourth quarter. So maybe with now removing where the Bulls were, right, as far as removing Zach LaVine and removing really that hope that you're still going to be that team that can be competitive, maybe Billy Donovan does embrace it a little bit further. You got coaches on the sidelines with Wes Unseld, with Dan Craig, who've been heads of player development. You got Peter Patton. So if all those things do start happening, great, right? Like if Billy Donovan could come here, can actually stay here and develop players, cool. But I'll say this. I still think that it's telling that Billy Donovan has 1 year left on his contract, and as of right now, we don't know. We haven't heard anything about a contract extension. Now, unfortunately, we are Chicago Bulls fans, and we all know that we've had secret extensions before, so you can't rest too much on your laurels that, we haven't heard any type of contract extension talks for Billy Donovan. For all we know, Billy Donovan could already have the extension, right? That's the way that the Chicago Bulls operate. But when you get Billy Donovan talking about his relationship with ownership and with the front office, I've said it before, Billy Donovan is going to probably be here as long as he wants to be here. And that's just something you got to deal with, right? It was something I was holding out hope for, but ultimately it's up to this front office to decide, and we'll see if it ends up what ends up happening with that. But let me know what you guys think. As far as Billy Donovan being willing now to stay on for a Chicago Bulls rebuild, do you think that's what's best for the team? Do you think that's concerning as I do? How do you guys feel about that aspect of it? Let me know what you guys think down below. But overall, even with all that said, the Chicago Bulls still play a basketball game today in which the Chicago Bulls are they take on the Minnesota Timberwolves today. on the road. So we're going to Minnesota for that after a game. And then we come back for 3 straight games at home against Golden State and 2 against Detroit. So the Bulls are taking the court against the Minnesota Timberwolves. And this is a team that's still trying to get their stuff together, right? Now, there have been some signs of them maybe starting to wake up some, right? They're 6-4 in their last 10, but they've lost 2 games in a row. And that's something you can't take lightly. The Minnesota Timberwolves are still a team, as long as they have Anthony Edwards, that you can never take lightly. You can never come in, and the Bulls aren't in a position to take anybody lightly, right? This is going to be a Timberwolves team that's going to try to come in and take advantage of the Bulls with their execution, with their activity, as they always do. Despite whatever they are, they still are the 8th best team as far as net rating in the league, and they have the 6th best defense on the season. When you look at the last 10 games for them, though, they're 7th in offense, 8th in defense, 6th in true shooting percentage. This is a team, they're top 10 in rebounding, top 10 in assist percentage, and top 10 in steals. This is a team that absolutely can give fits to the Chicago Bulls, as we already know, right? You have your players that have been absolutely killing it on this team, and the Bulls cannot come into this one lightly. But they can't in anything. And the remaining part of this season for the Chicago Bulls is really about playing with a sense of fun, playing with a sense of urgency, and playing with a sense of youth, right? And that's what the Bulls need to do against this Minnesota Timberwolves team, is just play with edge. This was a team that played with consistent energy last night against the Miami Heat. Now, yes, that came in. Patrick Williams fed off it. Matas Buzelis fed off it. So did Coby. So did Josh Giddey. If this team is going to be in basketball games, especially against teams like the Minnesota Timberwolves, you got to be locked in, y'all. And so that's what the keys to this game is just how much are the Bulls locked in, right? And, of course, we're not getting the new players. They're not playing in this one yet either, so we're going to run probably a shorter rotation again. But who makes the most of their opportunities, right? Who makes the most of those opportunities? Jalen Smith, Patrick Williams, Ayo Dosunmu, and Matas Buzelis are starting to build a lot of really good chemistry in their minutes on the court together. So I'm definitely looking to see if that continues, right? Billy Donovan now, he has to go to players. He has to go to certain players. There are players that have to step up just by the nature of who this team is now, right? And so while this team continues to be the team that's figuring themselves out, we could say that we've been at for the last decade. We haven't really had an identity, but it's different now because now you're looking at your young players to be the one to step up, your young players being the one to really to drive that home for you. So we'll see what the Bulls can do, man. The Bulls are always going to be a team that's shocked. We're going to be a wildly inconsistent team because we're coached inconsistently. But I think that this is a game against the Timberwolves, to just be 100% honest, where the Bulls have, I'm not going to say they have the edge, but when there's not a lot of tape on your guys because you have to play so differently because of you missing a player like Zach LaVine, that's where you can surprise some teams. And the Minnesota Timberwolves already, for a team that does not, even though they're top 10 in defensive rating in the league, when you get out in transition, when you attack them, you start finding kind of holes in that defense, right? Now, they do have Rudy Gobert, so it's going to be difficult to attack the paint in the way that we did, for example, last night against Miami. But the Bulls are going to have to figure that out, right? No fear is the name of the game right now for the Bulls. You can't have no fear. You can't back down. You got to go out there and play with some irrational confidence, right? That's what we need to see from this Bulls team the rest of the season, irrational confidence. But, it is what it is when it comes down to it. The Bulls sit right now, the 8th worst record in the league right now. The Portland Trailblazers keep winning, which is crazy. They won 5 in a row, right? And so, the Bulls are, they own their own destiny to a degree, right? I had a video. It's funny that I had a video not too long ago where I said that the Bulls have lost the right to control their own destiny. And they got a lot of that back with getting this pick back, right? Not saying that should restore the faith of the fan base. Not saying that at all. I would never say anything crazy like that. But I do think that they, in a way, do have that own control back over their destiny. And if they can continue to, just play basketball at this point, right? That's what you want to do. It's about development. It's not about wins. It's not about losses. It's about development. It's about going all out there, putting it all out on the court. And wherever the chips fall, they may. Because now that the Bulls own their own pick, that's the special sauce, y'all. That's the special sauce. There's no reason to obsess. I get it. Obsess over prospects, right? There are some really good prospects in this draft that I hope that the Chicago Bulls can add and that they get the evaluation right? Because the last thing I want is the Bulls to have a top 10 or a lottery pick, and we're the ones that get the bust out of a deep draft, right? I don't want that. So we'll see what this team can have and what they can bring about. But, hey, listen, for those that are starting to pivot, focusing more towards lottery projections and lottery players and who the Bulls can draft in those spots, I'm right there with you. But we still got 30 or so games left in the season. Let's see what the Bulls can do. Let's see how the Bulls can take care of business, man. Let's see how they can take care of business. This is going to be, it's going to be bad. It's going to be rough, but it has a chance of being fun, right? And I think that us as a community can make this fun by just appreciating what we have. 31 games we have left on the season. 31. And after the All-Star break, we all know it flies by. It's going to go by really, really quick. So let's have some fun in this one, man. But let me know what you guys think on everything down below. Make sure you guys are following the show at Bulls Central Pod. You can send us any feedback, questions, comments, concerns. BullsCentralPod@gmail.com. Lastly, if you want to leave a text message and or voicemail for the mailbag, the number to do so, 773-270-2799. We're the number one spot for everything Chicago Bulls related, thanks to you lovely and beautiful people. And like I like to end every episode on, go Bulls. Love you guys. See you right if you can, y'all. Peace.
This has been a presentation of the Break Media.